Maria Matarelli here, and I am with Alisa Lorello and Alistair Cockburn, and we are going to be talking about thriving with AI. Now, you may or may not have seen things talking about AI on the internet everywhere, every time you open it. And we've started having some conversations around this. And I want to start off by sharing a little bit about my background, and we'll all share a little bit about our backgrounds. Working with large organizations, Fortune 100 companies, I've been doing a lot of training with businesses on having optimized teams by using agile project management to get to market faster and be more effective in how we work and launch products to market. And over the years, traveling around the world, working with lots of different industries, there's a lot of commonalities. And we see a lot of these commonalities in what's working, what are the challenges across geographic locations, across industries. A lot of these things are pretty consistent. And what we're noticing is that now that the conversation is turning more toward AI in business, we're seeing patterns of companies looking to adopt it and how can this be done effectively. So, Alistair, I want to turn over to you next to share a little bit more about your background as well, and then Alisa.
Hi, thank you. Some people will know me as one of the authors of the Agile Manifesto about 25 years ago. We decided to write down the fact that we think that organizations and teams are more effective if they pay attention on the human interactions parts and the feedback that they get from delivering to real customers and talking to real users. I shortened that into the heart of Agile, which is just the four words: collaborate, deliver. So you collaborate to deliver, and then you reflect to improve. And one of the nice things about these four words is they're still applicable, even if you have a full AI implementation. So I'll be coming from this angle, looking at what AI is doing to these four words, how it changes the way we collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve.
Oh, amazing. Thank you, Alistair. And Alisa, over to you.
Hey, how you doing? So I'm very futuristic minded. I've been working with organizations as a consultant and doing transformations for quite a long time in fintech, also in real estate and in aerospace and defense. I've been working in AI over 5 years, so this is certainly a hot topic for me as well, and I look forward to our future discussions and today's discussion especially.
Yeah, and Alisa, I appreciate so much our conversation so far. So this all started with a phone call and actually with a text message.
Yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit more about, what led up to our first conversation on this topic? What types of things are you seeing in the world and hearing about that? I mean, obviously AI is here, it's not going away. We need to figure out how to adapt, how to live in this new world of work. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you're seeing, the panic you're hearing. What's that like?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, firsthand, a lot of it is, we have a lot of companies now, AI is what everybody, they know they need it. They just don't know how to implement it. And they don't know exactly what that process looks like. So we have a lot of companies that are looking at this as kind of a plug and play, and just plug in an AI agent, and now we're AI. I think all of us can agree that's kind of similar lessons learned from Agile adoptions, right? But definitely something we're seeing is that the companies are just trying to put in the technical aspect of it opposed to really looking at the human side of it. And some of that is these adoptions aren't going to succeed unless we do the sufficient amount of training. Some of the team members are on, not everybody's level set at the same level on AI and how to use the technology once it is developed and how to adopt it on a daily basis. And frankly, there's a trust factor. There is some people who have mixed emotions with using AI, and then you see a lot of propaganda that's out there now on, people losing their jobs and, is it going to take over my job? And how do you, future proof yourself from AI? So these are the different types of topics that are all at play, at these companies and corporations when they're trying to do these AI adoptions.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing some similar things. Alistair, I'd love to know what's your initial hot take on this.
Okay, so I'm on the record that at this moment, at this exact instant in 2025, there's just all this dust in the air and there's no pattern. That's my take. Is it is moving. I follow. So I have some programmers that I follow. I follow very closely Henrik Knieberg, who's really leading in the agent creation, and he put something up. This is now the second time in a row. He put something up and he says, so much has changed in the last 6 weeks. I can't even predict what I'll be able to do 6 weeks from now, right? So when we take it and everybody's trying, yes, everybody's trying. And the way I work is I find organizations that are succeeding and I go and I debrief them. I'm a kind of an anthropologist and I go and I say, what did you do and what did you like? And I'm not seeing that yet, right? There's so much just dust in the air. And so we, like anybody else, is trying to make some pattern out of all the dust that's in the air. And 2 months from now, it'll somehow be different. But the fact of the matter is, it's if I try to just think, like we would try to do some analogy and imagine that gasoline was just invented, like the drilling for oil happened 2 years ago, right? And somebody invented an internal combustion engine, and now gasoline is available. So if we look at the ecological footprint damage from oil drilling around the world. And we go, oh man, we're burning the planet down with all these data centers. Well, we're burning the planet down by drilling out the oil, right? So there's a ecological similarity. There's an effect of having, like electricity or gasoline. But it's a revolution of about that size for me, like gasoline or electricity, the beginning of the computers, starting to replace jobs. But the shape hasn't taken place yet. We have individual pockets of efficiency, but an overall, that's my starting position as we start here on November 6th of 2025.
But I think some of that too, and that is true, right? But I think at the end of the day, we know it's going to change us, right? We know we're going to shift and change. I think some of that is what is that ultimately going to look like? And I think that's some of the conversation we all had before is, like we know if the company's operating in an agile fashion, that the team structures now are going to be hybrid in the sense of human and AI. So we
So let
know
me
that
let me
there's going to be
let me
some
just
changes.
I want to draw out just for a little bit this comparison with gasoline, right? It sounds like really weird and
Okay.
fun, okay? But we've had gasoline for so long, we've become accustomed to it. But imagine the year is 2020. And whatever our society looks like, there's no gasoline, right? And somebody figures out internal combustion engine and says, look what I have, right? And everybody jumps and is trying to figure out what do you do with an internal, right? And I'm just thinking here the other day, I had the people working on my lawn, and there's the guy with the weed whacker, the gasoline-driven weed whacker, going edging the lawn, right? That was not in your predictions if you had just said there is no gasoline, people are doing lawn work or whatever. The guy with the riding mower, they did my whole front and backyard in 20 minutes, right?
Amazing.
With 3 people with gasoline powered little tools. So yes, it's going to change the world. Maybe like gasoline, and yes, it's got a terrible, CO2 ecological foot. Yes, and so did gasoline. And so I'm holding that in my head, but we're trying to predict, like, what would it be if the AI agents are in the weed whacker, right, in the lawnmower, or whatever. You see what I'm
But like
going?
the gasoline, it's certainly accelerating, and we know that it's accelerating our ability, right? And in
That's
some
it, right?
cases, I
So
think
we do
some of
we
that
do stuff.
paradigm shift, yeah, is that we've, a lot of people are like, oh, it's hallucinating. It's not 100%, but it's not meant to be. Humans aren't. But I'm telling you, I could put stuff in there. It can produce things 80% faster, get me the results if I'm doing like data cataloging or something way
Right.
than having, my entire team doing that.
Right. And of course, then your management will ask you to be not just, 3 times more efficient, but like 8 times more efficient. So you still have to work overtime.
But you
So this
still
is
No,
this is where it gets
I
interesting.
disagree with
This is
you.
this is where it gets really
All
interesting.
right,
And
now we've got the human factor suddenly showed
yes,
up, right?
yes.
What?
So
You're merely
I want to I
3 times
want to take a
faster?
step back real quick because these
Thank
are
you,
really
Maria.
great points being brought up, and I love these viewpoints. And I'm already picturing the dust in the wind and waiting for it to settle, right? One of the things that I think is really fascinating is something that's been happening in the industry, right? We see these waves, we see trends, and there was this huge push for Agile over the years, right? It started as people were discovering things like the Scrum framework as being very effective to launch products to market. Then we started seeing this big wave of scaling frameworks, right? Which sometimes were believed to be a silver bullet. not the answer to everything. And I remember at one of the Agile conferences several years ago, Ron Jeffries and Chet Hendrickson were being interviewed by Dave Pryor. And Chet very distinctively said, what are we trying to scale if we're not even delivering every few weeks, right? Like, why are we trying to put a cart before a horse? And so we've seen the industry like have these silver bullets, these things that they think are going to be the answer, right? To better business, more efficiency, more market share. And over the years, we see these trends shift. Now, one of the things, a couple things that I'm noticing in conversations with, I'm doing training classes with Fortune 100 companies and people working at different companies on a weekly basis. And so I'm hearing from them. I've started asking them, what is your impression of AI and what have you experienced? And I'm just starting to gauge the pulse on that. And the feedback is interesting. And one of the things that I'm thinking in how this can benefit businesses is yes, Alisa, absolutely, it can increase the efficiency in how we're working, right? But what's interesting, and Alistair, as you're speaking about the human element, right? We're starting to introduce that concept. We see people, general resistance to change. We're seeing people panicking for their jobs going away. We're seeing a lot of resistance of people not wanting to train up their computer replacement, so to speak. And so I think a couple things are clear. AI is here. It's been here. It's not going away. We need to figure out how to work with it, leverage it, use it. But also, there's this human element that's important. Now, a lot of companies have used Agile and gotten a lot of success over the years. Some companies have used Agile poorly and not gotten success. And I always talk about that as a recipe. If you're not following the recipe, we cannot guarantee the results, right? This is the recipe. If you don't follow the framework, well, good luck. But if you think it's not working, it might be the different ingredients that you switched up, right? Now, we're seeing a pattern. Alisa, we were talking just the other day about the pattern we're seeing from companies adopting Agile to now how they're adopting AI and some of the sloppiness with that, right? And so back to your point, Alistair, about the human piece, the human element. And I know you've really focused on humans and technology has been your ethos for a long time. Now we've got humans and technology on steroids, right? Technology with a brain, an artificial intelligence. We're talking about technologies now thinking. So my personal thought is if we can properly leverage AI, if we can integrate it, and then we can also look at the human side, we can actually increase the optimization of how our organization runs on many, many facets. But Alisa, what you're saying and what Alistair, you just said, is that now companies are expecting you to do more and then do even more. And now we're running the same challenge with sustainable pace, and we're losing some of that efficiency as we're burning out people and causing mass panic.
So it's good you bring that up. You're reframing a little bit. So I love the way you phrase that. So back in the and not to date myself, but to date myself, but back in the 80s, I was working for IBM Research, and they had just come up with an alternate to the Ethernet, which they called the token ring. And I had come from computer graphics, and I remember being called into the big boss's office. Now, imagine the 1980s, they're talking about maybe 4 megabits on a ring inside a company with hard wires and stuff like that. And the bosses literally asked me this question. They said, we're inventing these like hyperspeed, super fast networks. Do you think there will ever be the need to send that much graphical or pictorial information over a network? And I just kind of stared at them and I'm going, the greed of humans is insatiable. I mean, an exponential curve is nothing compared to the greed curve of a human being. And now I go on the airplane and every single person, right, however 100 people have a separate video broadcast to their seat, all separate completely, right? And back in the 80s, they couldn't even imagine that level of demand. They were like, could anybody ever make use of like 4 or 16 megabits per second? Oh my gosh. So when we talk about the human greed being like it's insatiable, there is no upper bound. And so we say, okay, hey, Alisa, I'm really glad that you and your colleagues are all doing that work. And now you're 5 times faster. That gives me the idea. Suppose it was 25 times faster. Can you do that? When can you do that by? Can we put that on the schedule? Right? So there is no upper limit. Yeah, same. Look at the power. Look at the cars that are driving the F-150 trucks, right? In the first gasoline engine, right? Nobody would need that, right? In the power competitions between power trucks trucks and stuff like that. Nobody would need, oh yeah, we do, just everybody has it, right?
Well,
At
and
least I heard.
yeah, and I think that lends to, I mean, that's another area of AI that's another hot topic is the ethics and governance, and then also the guardrails, and how it's utilized and harnessed. Because even though you can do the work faster, you still there's a limit to, I think, how fast, and you still have to have human involvement in it. I mean, I think
Okay,
what
I
happens
finally
is that
found
we
something I can
switch.
disagree with. Good. We're way too much in agreement. I just found it. There's no upper limit. No.
Because I think that I think at the end of the day, we become like, well, the AI helps to kind of do the content creating. We still need
Right.
verifiers and validators. Like we still need folks in there. It's not just AI driven. And I think that's where some of these corporate strategies are just kind of, we put in an agent, but there has to be a balance. And again, it goes back to teams will have to be hybrid. They'll have to be AI and humans working together. And it should be.
Alisa, that blew my mind when you first said that on one of our previous calls because I hadn't realized we were there yet. Like I've been talking to people about like using AI, but when you were like, yeah, our teams will be made up of AI agents as like team members. Like
Yeah.
this is a new level of cyborg I don't think people are ready for. I don't think that's
Uh,
landed for people yet.
And the
Nothing.
technology is there for it to actually like have its own voice. Like if you're doing a Zoom call like this, we could have an AI agent that's there speaking their piece and part like a team member, but it's in fact AI.
I'm talking with Dennis Stevens these days on occasion, and even like already maybe 2 years ago, he coined the phrase AI is the third brain, and he's talking about executive leadership actions, and making business strategy and talking about the teams and how to coach teams. And you would have possibly two or even just one executive, and the AI would be your conversation partner, and that changes the way you would lead, and that changes the way you would phrase things for people also, right? So it's not just generate more content quickly, but actually even changing the way in which you do, because that already even, the the thing can be monitoring the emails and the phone calls or whatever, and give coaching suggestions like you're being a little bit too direct here. This person has a sense of being, defeatist or something, and maybe shift the tone, right? So you've got the therapist in your ear. So yeah, now what you just added, Maria, was I only had one third brain. I didn't have a set of other brains in the conversation, all doing this. Eeks.
Right? And so I think what's happening is is this like the gold rush, like a technology gold rush where companies are like rushing to the integration of AI without really thinking through the strategy? Alisa, what are your thoughts
Yes.
on like the general? I mean, that's a pretty safe bet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think um to me that's kind of the concern. I think that's where a lot of companies, again, you get, you know, the C-suite knows we need AI, right? We to stay competitive, to meet market demands. So therefore, that next tier, right? The manager, okay, go make us AI, get us AI where we need it, and then, I think the next layer of the managers, and then they're telling the next folks down. And but I think everyone's there. There isn't a full strategy across corporations that's really looking at that and streamlining that across the company. I think what's happening is kind of what we saw in lessons learned in digital transformations and in agile transformations, right? It like it starts at the team level or too technical, like, oh, it's just this one process we're going to make AI, opposed to this is a larger strategy that the company needs to adopt because there has to be an infrastructure in place. You need to have governance, you need to have guardrails, security, data security issues, right? As we've already seen, some companies have had information leaked. I mean, there's a lot more that has to be factored into the usage and how we're using the technology in order to safeguard the company and to make the transformation successful. I mean, training is another aspect. And then, like we talked about, the human aspect, right? I mean, really helping and reassuring your employees that, like, this is supposed to enhance your life. And I know Alistair was saying, like, oh, you're going to have to do faster. But I mean, if we could adopt, I think it was Google did like the 80/20, right? Where it's like you get 20% of now some downtime to reinvent. Like if you can really take this technology, get some of your smartest people in your company using it and thinking about it, I mean, they can make massive improvements or come up with some great ideas that can really help accelerate the company. So I think it's really a better of how we harness it in the sense of, in a good sense, in a creative sense, with humans running right along with it, opposed to just a technical, we're going to write an agent that's going to take over this flow or process.
So I am curious, Maria, you visited some company recently and were installing some AI agents. Can you say anything about your sense of what you saw? If you were to predict that up a little bit, forecast that attach?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, I'm working with a team where we go in, we essentially AIify businesses.
Mhm.
And what has been happening is I'm noticing a disconnect. And the disconnect that I'm noticing is that, first of all, I think it's a brilliant way of doing it because it's kind of like an implementation, like a done with you approach. So, hey,
Mhm.
let's look at something. What's a process that you're doing where it's repetitive, where you do this, 10 times a week or 20 times in a month, right? Or even more frequently. And then let's go ahead and build AI agents and really showing the people, the team members, how to do this themselves. And the idea being that they can now start to automate things in their job to streamline processes, make their job simpler. And as you were saying, Alisa, the idea being to free up our people for more strategic work and thinking and ideation, right? And how else can we integrate AI? Though what we're starting to see already is that it's the feet, the heels dug in the mud, right? Like trying to like pull the bull out to like buck in the rodeo, right? It's like you got the bronco just like, no, I don't want to get out there, right? And it's a little bit of the general resistance to change, but it's also massive fear. And so
Yeah.
it's what we tend to see when people don't understand how this is going to work for them. How is this going to help me? And I've been going through and looking at comments and posts online, and we can share some of these in our future segments, but like the panic is real. Like it's hysterical, like the sarcasm that we're seeing, right? Like the meme game is strong, but it's sad because this can be avoided.
Yeah.
And what's happening is this is the perfect implementation where we're going to literally automate and systematize your processes with your team and show them how to do it. But then what do you think is the number of people that are actually creating their own automations in between the sessions?
Probably none.
Close to none,
Yeah.
because there's not actual understanding on why or buy-in on how this is
Well,
going to help.
you
And a big
know,
part is I think a lot of companies don't have the skill set in house. I mean, this is AI isn't new, but the way we're using it and trying to use it today is right. And I don't know that there's enough skill sets or the companies have those internal skill sets already. So I think by bringing in another company and partnering and have them running along with your team is a great thing if they're actually truly going to get that implemented right for that success. It's like a coach. You need a coach helping you through that process. You need a team to also support you through that process too.
Yes,
well,
and we need to
Oh,
also guide the people along this process,
yes.
right?
I'm all about guiding the management because management's got really a pretty ugly history of misusing these things. And if you say the people are afraid, and I go, well, history's kind of on their side, frankly. And so what interests me is the management side of helping them see how to make the company more efficient, but to keep the employees, working in happy and working in alignment with the humans that they eventually have to keep. Because if the humans get really unhappy, then other bad things happen to the company.
Yes, and one of the things that I find very interesting, I was just building out some AI agents with the team just the other day. Building out an AI agent is very agile. It's very iterative. You are likely not going to get it right on the first prompt. And so
Right.
you're going to have to run through it. You're going to have to iterate. You're going to have to cycle through it. And even from one week to the next, from
Yeah.
one meeting to the next, building out the same systems and automations, there's so much advancement that can happen in such a short period of time. I think that companies, it would behoove them to
Mm.
keep their people keep them
Mm.
engaged because they are your subject matter experts. So back to the greed statement, Alistair,
Yeah.
instead of getting so greedy of, hey, now let's get rid of people because now I can have an AI do it. Well, but think of the optimization if you optimize your people in the same in parallel with optimizing technology.
Right. There
There's
you go.
so much more opportunity that I think it's like an unknown unknown, right? Like
Right.
companies aren't even thinking about the possibility there that what if, now I'm going to go out on a really wild limb here. What if we actually listened to our people,
Mm.
nurtured them through this change,
Right.
taught them, coached them how to think critically,
Right.
helped them start to think about, well, how else could we adopt AI into this work stream? But
Right.
then didn't look at how can we now cut that salary, but how can we continue to have this person optimize more systems and processes?
I
That's
mean,
good because you've got there just one short, Alisa.
good.
Just what is our business about, right? So if the training now is and the coaching is on helping the employees ask the question, what is our business really about? Then we can employ this multiplier in a way that the person is still there and multiplying the business. Sorry, Alisa, your turn.
Yeah, no, that's okay. No, I mean, to your point of the prompts and acceleration, right? And I mean, certainly it has to be an agile iterative approach because even, you can't just write a prompt and then you're done. I mean, the technology is growing fast. The way it computes is growing fast. I mean, one day a prompt works, the next day you have to rewrite that prompt. So, I mean, it really is, we talk about continuous process improvement. It's a constant state of that with the technology and growing with it, helping the company grow with it. So certainly you have to have that engagement and that involvement and coaching all involved in that process continuously to stay successful with that, right? And then the other side of it is just the data, like the data that AI is consuming, right? We have to have data hygiene and cleansing. So you have to make sure that you're continuously ensuring that otherwise, you're going to have polluted outcomes.
And this all leads us back to answer the age old question that is taking over LinkedIn over the last few years. Is Agile dead? And I believe the answer is no, it is not.
No.
If you're Agile, if you think your Agile is dying or dead, my stance is I don't know that I'd love to know what you're doing. Can you describe to me the things that you're doing? We were just talking about this. If you look at the heart of Agile, Alistair has broken this down into four very simple verbs: collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. If you're collaborating more as a team, if you're delivering more frequently, if you're reflecting and improving, how is that worse for how a team works, right? And so if someone thinks Agile is not working or dying, it could be the case of only adopting a process or framework without,
Like a
again, the
classical,
human
right? Like a
side.
classical Scrum or a classical Safe by now, as opposed to the intention of the Agile, which is the better you collaborate, the better things go, and you deliver for feedback and value, and then you reflect and improve.
I think
Exactly.
if anything, it accelerates it. I think AI just accelerates agile. Like we need it more, but they're going to need it more than ever.
Mm.
And have a really good implementation of that because I think it's just going to accelerate the process of it. Now there will be things for agile that do change, like team structure or certain. I think implementation aspects of we look at the Scrum cycle or those types of things that will change based with the usage of AI. But for the most part, it just really accelerates that mindset and the concepts that we apply.
I agree completely. And I think it's more important now to be agile than ever before because we need to be able to inspect and adapt, iterate, look at
Mhm.
what's happening in the market, respond to that change. And even with the adoption of AI, we need to be agile in this process. We are iterating all throughout creating AI agents. Like you need
Right,
to go through these feedback loops to see if
right.
it's working
Because it's
Mm.
changing and moving so fast. You
so
have
fast.
to. You have to have that mindset of being
Yeah.
able to adjust and adapt.
Mm.
So, as we're coming toward the end of our time box here of this
That was awesome.
vibrant conversation,
That was awesome, the way to
that
kind of
I
fill it
enjoyed
out.
this. We might have to do this again sometime. Alistair, closing thoughts.
No, I guess what I didn't see enough before that I got out of this conversation was that actually the iteration doesn't stop. The fact that you got a query to work this week doesn't mean that the same query works next week. So in fact, It's not like, oh, these people will do this thing that will replace them. No, they'll do this thing that'll replace them this week, and then they'll do it again that will replace them next week. And so actually they're still there moving it along. And this idea of them then learning, what is our business really about? Like, how can my general energy contribute to the business using these tools is a different way of asking that question.
I like that. Alisa, final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think mine is just realistically is hoping that companies recognize that AI isn't just about, going faster or having the opportunity to lay people off or, the bottom line, that it's really an opportunity at this point to advance more, right? Give more think trust to your smart people in your company and grow and expand and really see, strengthen the company and so that they are more competitive in the market, have better offerings, really get that quality out of the work. So I just hope that that is how the companies really work to look at utilizing the technology other than just, plug and play, pull out a human, plug in an AI agent, because that is not going to work. And really looking at a transformation fully, that it's more, there's a full infrastructure that has to be put in place for it to be successful.
I appreciate that also. And, my thoughts are the human side is just so important. And if we're going to be optimizing technology, why not double down and optimize your people and technology? Because we can have so much more. Like you're already paying the salaries, we already have that worked into our budget and cost. So if we're getting that efficiency that we've always wanted, right, to like squeeze more out of each person, like well, now we're able to do that with AI, but why throw out the person? It's like throwing away the baby with the bathwater. How do we I think the real question is how do we help people understand how this can help them? And how can we as leaders create safety in our organization where people feel an interest in actually optimizing systems and processes with AI? That's the big miss that's happening right now.
Well, and I think something, and maybe we can have a later discussion on this topic, but all these layoffs they're doing, you're losing tribal knowledge,
Yeah.
and AI can't tell you how you got where you got. And where if you replace those people, you're losing that tribal knowledge, and that can have some serious impacts and ramifications
So
as
can we
well.
use that as a bookmark to kick off the next one?
I
Because I
like
just
Sure.
that.
saw a lovely article by a guy in England who was in charge of AI research for the British English government and wrote a fantastic like experience report which picks up on exactly what you just said, Alisa. So can we use that as a hook for our next conversation, please?
I like
Yeah.
that. Let's do it. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Maria Matarelli, Alisa Lorello, and Alistair Cockburn talking about thriving with AI. If you are interested in learning more about how you can start to adopt AI in a responsible way with your organization, I'm going to go ahead and put a link in the chat as well. If you'd like to continue the conversation with any of us, fill out the form at ai.formulainc.com. That's Inc with a K. And we would be happy to talk more with you on how you can do this effectively. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Bye.